We why isn't that doing it? I know it's not. We're good. Sure.
Live?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Good evening. Today is Wednesday, September 18th, 2024 at 6 p.m. We're in the Brecksville Broadview Heights Education Center, 6638 Mill Road, Brecksville, Ohio. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting as an indicated agenda item. This meeting will be live streamed via YouTube and will also be recorded for later viewing. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel where all recordings are posted. Item 1B, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1C, roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Wojtkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes. Moving on to item 2, President's announcements. I have none. We'll move on to item 3, board appointments. 3A, board appointed reports from Cuyahoga Valley Career Center. Rachel Malik, I reached out to her. She was not able to join us this evening, but she did want to share. I would like to pass along, if you could, CVCC is hosting a college night October 2nd from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Various vendors, universities, and colleges will be there. Kent State is also sponsoring a college financial aid presentation. Being at CVCC is so close, it may be helpful, beneficial for some of our students to attend. She also indicates that there will be a groundbreaking in the new facility next week, and that she hopes they come to our next meeting with more updates. OSBA legislative liaison. Ellen, do you have any?
No update.
Okay. Moving on to item 4, superintendent committee reports, financial liaison audit committee, Tish and myself. The audit is just getting started.
That's correct.
Okay, so more to come on the audit.
Yep.
Permanent Improvement Committee, Ava and myself. Well,
It's about that time, so we'll be scheduling a meeting for October.
and we will be discussing this evening the master plan and the strategic plan. So there's elements of PI in what we're going to be discussing later. So stay tuned for more on that. Board Policy Committee, Ellen and Lisa.
So we don't have an update, and I was just in communication with Jeff about this earlier in the week because we typically have an update, a policy update in September. So he's checking about
I
where
haven't got
things
word
stand
back
with
yet.
that.
They were late with the update last year as well, if you remember. So we're not sure. Sherry's reached out, but we haven't heard.
Okay, so to be determined, maybe we may have to do it sometime in October.
Past practice, we usually had it in September, if not before, and for some reason we don't have it this year yet.
Transportation Appeals Committee, myself, there have been no appeals. Hopefully that trend continues. Safety and Security Meeting Report, Ava and Ellen.
Nothing more to report.
Nope.
Schools Foundation Report, Tish.
Yes, so the Schools Foundation has asked that I share with the public that they are looking for anyone with a financial background who may be interested in becoming a trustee and serving in the role as treasurer for them. Becky Prota, who is currently serving as treasurer, is going to probably step down and move into another position. So they would like anyone who would be interested and has a passion for our district and the good work that the foundation does to reach out to them. And you can do that at info@bbhsf.org. And the other two items I need to share is that they are starting to plan their big fundraising event that happens in February for the year. So details will, start coming out for that later and into the new year. And then just to asking the public to be on the lookout through social media and in our buildings for the grants that have been awarded to teachers this year and how they are coming alive and being implemented with our students. So they're getting great feedback already, especially on the fencing and the grant that's been implemented with phys ed up at the middle school. So community, if you're listening, go to their webpage, go to their social media sites and look at how those grants are being implemented throughout the district. So.
Before we move on, Craig, usually we have a smaller window with the video of us in the boardroom. Is that?
Here we go. Sorry.
Okay. All right, moving on, Sustainability Committee, Ellen and Ava.
I have no updates.
I don't have anything either. We keep getting emails that things are moving, but I have a feeling that it's going to be a little bit longer before everything is up to speed, at least with the first phase.
PSO report, Lisa.
The PSO units are all having their membership drives, which I mentioned last time. So if you're interested in joining PSO at the building level, you can go on each of the units' individual websites. I'll thank you again to each of the units who planned a lot of nice back to school events. Specifically, the elementary PSO had a nice back to school bash, which was a really nice event, and also a fundraiser. And they planned a nice elementary tailgate event, which unfortunately it rained, but people still came out and had a nice time in the rain. If you're planning on purchasing one of the Biopoly games that the Chamber of Commerce has made, you purchase them online through their website, you can enter the code BBHPSO at checkout, and PSO will receive $20 for each game sold. So that's a nice way to help support the Chamber of Commerce and the PSO. These are just a couple of things that were mentioned at PSO Council this month. The Athletic Boosters is hosting their annual mattress fundraiser at the high school on October 26th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's always a nice event if you're in the market for a mattress. And from Band Boosters, the marching band is hosting a fundraiser. This is the first year for it. It's called Band on Demand. So for $5, you can buy a raffle ticket and they will pull one winner, and you will get to have a personalized marching band concert in your front yard if you're the winner. So they're going to do it on, the concert will be on October 10th around 5:45, and they're going to pull the winner on at the October 4th football game. So you can go on the marching band website to buy tickets for that. I've already bought tickets, so I'm crossing my fingers that I win. I'm sure my neighbors will love it. The next PSO council meeting is Thursday, October 3rd at 9:30.
Great, thank you. Moving on to item 5, superintendent's announcements.
I kept the announcements extremely short, meaning none, because we have a couple presentations tonight. I want to save all my time for, but I have to share one story from today with you, and it has to do with safety and security. But we have to date distributed over 500 of our Centegix rapid alert to our staff members throughout the district. The bus drivers' tags were signed up today. They'll be distributed over the next couple, but they're throughout our buildings. But today, Brian Cost did the test to make sure that we're live with 911. Up until this point, we were just live with the internal staff reports, meaning that it went to the safety team, you knew where it was in the building, and they reported. I report the high school is leading the game with the most staff alerts, but it's being used appropriately and is just another layer of security. But today, Brian tells all of us he's testing at noon. And so we're all sitting there waiting, and he's going to do it from his office, so it'll register to him. And he's talking to dispatch, letting them know this is a test. We're going to run it. And they're like, okay, good. We want to see how it happens. He hits it. The strobe lights start going off. The computer screens on network say lockdown, 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 working just as planned. My phone starts to ring. It's Mayor Kingston. I'm like, hey, Mayor. He's like, everything okay? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm in the car and it just came across the radio that there's a panic alarm at the board office. I'm calling to see if everything's okay.
Oh.
So I'm like, no, it's just a test. Obviously, they forgot to tell you it was a test. And then as soon as I hang up the phone with Mayor Kingston, the sergeant comes in the front door from Brecksville. Like, hey, we just got an alarm. And we're like, oh, dispatch didn't tell you that we were testing. So I'm happy to report it works. And Brecksville's response was like within seconds of being here. I mean, the mayor called me for Pete's sake. So, but it is, it's a system that, we talked a lot about last year. It's just another layer of safety and security, but it is used on a daily basis with students who, Mr. Hartland's had a few that I see the alert come across and student is on the run and we're, tracking them down, but it's been put to good use. So I just wanted to give you that quick report on how things went today, but it is completely live now. So we'll go 911 with 7 or more clicks. So with that, I'm going to introduce our primary principal, Mrs. Colleen Toth, to introduce our other guests for our first kind of informational item.
So I have the amazing kindergarten team with me. These are just 2 of the kindergarten teachers. I have Mrs. Pagan, Michelle Pagan, and Miss Corinne Thacker. Both of them are extremely passionate about what they do every single day in our building. And they are just 2 of the teachers at kindergarten who express the same type of passion. So I know in previous board meetings, we had the discussion about the enrollment date for when kiddos can register for kindergarten. So this has originated from our kindergarten team, just based on how kindergarten has changed over the years. I know that they're going to talk, so I don't want to steal any of their stories, but Mrs. Pagan and I can go back and we can relate to what our first kindergarten experience was and how different it is today. So I just want them to share a little bit about kindergarten and how it looks today compared to maybe when we were in school and what it looked like. Our kindergarten team has done an amazing job, especially over the last couple of years. And I know they're going to highlight some of those items, including phase-in and how we prepare our kindergartners to transition from some that aren't even in a school setting or in a preschool to an all-day setting in kindergarten or even a half-day setting. So without further ado, I'd like to thank Corinne and Michelle for coming today to share a little bit more about their experiences with their kindergartners.
So you know who's who. I am Michelle Pagan, and I've actually been teaching in the district. This is my 30th year, and it has been in kindergarten the entire time. I had the pleasure of having Mrs. Kramer's son, and I worked under Ava a little bit. So no few faces up there.
I am Corinne Thacker, and this is my 12th year in the district. When I was hired in, Ava was my first principal. Wonderful principal. And tonight we are representing our kindergarten team and the other 9 teachers that we teach with each day. So tonight we have a presentation to present to you our ideas and best practice for where we believe kindergarten eligibility requirements should be in our district. We want to educate, empower, and engage our community, board members, and school officials in that discussion about the kindergarten entrance date. We would like to first start off by educating our community on the current research regarding the entrance date to kindergarten. Ohio Revised Code allows 2 options for school districts by which they adopt for a child must turn 5 years of age to be admitted to kindergarten. Those options include September 30th or August 1st.
When we started doing a lot of research on this for several years now, and when we looked across the United States, we discovered that over 35 states actually have an entrance date that allows the children to be older when they're starting kindergarten. In the last 10 years, several school districts within our area have even started moving their kindergarten start date earlier as well. Our local data suggests that August 1st is really one of the preferred dates, and that would include such school districts near us as North Royalton, Revere, Brunswick, and Strongsville. In my entire 30 years that I'm aware of, BBH has never changed their kindergarten entrance date, even though the standards and kindergarten has changed dramatically. And in addition to that, over the past 20 years, BBH and even other local school districts, especially in regards to state mandated testing, have started their school years earlier. I mean, I remember back in the day when we would start closer to September, even sometimes after Labor Day. And now we tend to begin in that early mid-August. That then starts to compound, and that means that our children are even entering kindergarten even earlier, some of them than they would have even have started a few years ago. Today, for instance, we literally had 2 children that had birthdays today. One was celebrating their 5th day today on September 18th, and one was celebrating their 6th birthday on the same date. So you have an entire year's worth of growth and experience and life on earth in one classroom at the same time, having the same expectations and requirements. So now I'd like to engage you.
So we want to engage our board and community to think about kindergarten readiness. Put on your cap is thinking about what it looks like in the classroom, as well as how a child is feeling in those 4 walls of a classroom. So we'd like to read you a quote from the National Center for Education Statistics. Children who enter kindergarten more ready to grow and learn have an advantage over their peers who are less ready to do so. Lower levels of kindergarten readiness are associated with poor academic outcomes for elementary to high school. Kindergarten readiness is examined in relation to 2 indicators: academic readiness and self-regulation, as well as attention skills.
So let's think about readiness skills that we required of our kindergartners, say 30 years ago, like when I started teaching kindergarten, to today. So 30 years ago, my students would have been required to master the 26 letters of the alphabet, being able to identify just the uppercase letters, not even lowercase letters when I began. And they only had to be able to count to 10. Currently, the Ohio Department of Education, who we've, of course, have to adopt their standards, we require kindergartners to leave kindergarten being able to fluently read emergent reader text, as well as count to 100. If you think about that quantitatively, that's tenfold within a 30-year time span. And that's quite a lot. The increase in the academic load is enough for kindergarten students, but all of that academic content requires a greater need for the students to be able to attend and to self-regulate. The behaviors include students being able to listen, to follow directions, to stay on task, to persevere through a difficult situation, to problem solve and complete tasks independently. And what we're finding is consistently our kindergarten team, when we meet, we are finding that it tends to be our youngest students that really require extra support in comparison to their peers. And when we think about these children entering school, we want their first schooling experience to be tremendous and wonderful and positive and glowing. And when you're, as a classroom teacher, finding yourself needing to intervene and provide so much extra assistance, so much more one-on-one time of even like reiterating the rules, like we need to sit, we need to walk, we need to listen, we need to do this, we need to do that. You start to feel as a teacher that that experience is no longer the most positive it could necessarily be for that child. And we desire it for that foundational year to be filled with opportunities for growth and positivity. And since the ODE has adopted this option since 2001 to be able to change our start date to an earlier start date, making our students a little bit older for the onset of their first schooling experience, we believe that that will empower all of our community and our students and our staff to do better.
So you might be wondering, how does our current kindergarten program empower students and respond to the changing times? So a few examples of what we're doing at BBH in response to our students' needs and adjusting our programming is one of the first things we did was we host a kindergarten screening in May of each year. And at screening, we've always done a rigorous academic screening, but we've added layers to look closer at social skills as well as emotional readiness and overall school readiness for kindergarten. Something else that we've done is we've remodeled our phase-in. as Mrs. Toth mentioned earlier, we've lengthened the orientation day when students first come in prior to starting school on the first academic day of school. They get an opportunity to come in for phase in, and we have reworked that. So now they're attending and going to the cafeteria, experiencing lunch and recess. They are attending specials classes and touring the building just to give them more exposure into the building, more exposure and time with their teacher, to acclimate them to their classroom, the building, and their teacher, giving them more of those experiences prior to them coming on the first day, when that is very overwhelming. They're also coming in smaller groups, so they have the opportunity to experience this in a small group setting, instead of a whole class off the bat. Some other things we are doing is we have classroom lessons. Much of our teaching at the beginning of the year, we've pulled back on academics and focused more on giving opportunities for self-regulation, practicing those readiness skills, focusing on the social emotional learning, and embedding social emotional lessons into our daily teachings, as well as giving them exposure and time with our school counselor experts, focusing on social emotional learning.
And even though we've made fantastic adjustments, you know, doing the best that we can with everything that we're given, and especially to counterbalance this age requirement, we still know in our heart of hearts that best practice would be to reconsider what else can be done. So therefore, we are proposing that the school board look at changing our kindergarten start date to the August 1st date, that it would be effective beginning with the 25-26 school year, that a child is eligible for entrance into kindergarten if she or he attains the age of 5 on or before August 1st of the year in which she or he has applied for entrance. By changing the age cutoff date, we are empowering the children and families by giving them an increased amount of time for social emotional maturity outside of the stressors and the environment of school. When they're in the classroom setting, it's the constant of this is what needs to be done, this is what's next, the rigidness of the schedule, the rigidness of the expectations. And no matter how much we take time to tweak this or tweak that, in the end, it's maturity, and maturity can only be given by giving them time to grow. As I mentioned at the onset of this, the same kindergarten start date, having an entire year's worth of experience in comparison to that very same peer sitting next to them in the same classroom, you can just imagine if you especially if you even think about it from like a newborn to a 1-year-old, that maturity, that development, the social emotional skills, everything is still occurring. We just don't quite see it as much when you're thinking 5 to 6 or 4 to 5, but it's still occurring. It's stagnant, the amount of growth that they're making. Additionally, by considering changing that start date, we really help our parents. Our parents in this community look to us, the professionals, as to giving them our best advice, our best judgment on what can be done in the best interest of their child. And this is definitely our proposal on one way in which we can help our parents make a very difficult decision. We know that the parents tend to look to each other or to community. And as we know, even as adults, we still have peer pressure as adults. Many times parents will come to us and they're like, we did not even realize that we could wait to send our child to school. All the neighbors were sending their children, their preschool class, they were in that 4-year-old preschool class and they were all moving up to kindergarten. I didn't know I even had that choice. And so therefore, by removing that barrier for them, they don't have to deal with all of that pressure that parents already have in facing that potential kindergarten cutoff date of what should I do or what's best for my child. We can already tell you that majority of the time, what is best is giving them more time. The gift of time is just the biggest gift of all. Giving them enough time, more time to play, to wonder, to explore, and to gain new experiences, and just around the world around them, and letting them just be a kid for one more year. We all know growing up, it's not great. I mean, come on, growing up, who really, and so if we can help these parents to give these kiddos one more year of just being a kid without peer pressure, without stress of school, without all of that, that's what we're asking you.
So making this change would impact roughly 1 to 2 students per class, or about 5% of our total kindergarten population. We looked at that, anyone whose birthday falls after the August 1st date. It would be 5%. Doesn't sound like a huge number, but that makes a significant difference in the day-to-day learning and classroom happenings.
Especially too, sorry.
Mhm.
It is the scaffolded effect of it is that when you have young fours in a classroom and you happen to have a lot of older fives or even some sixes that are starting kindergarten, and you're having to tailor a lot of what your instruction and your behavior management and so forth towards the needs of some of your youngest students because they're incapable due primarily to their age, that they just haven't had as much time or experience in the classroom setting. Then it's scaffolding against what the rest of the peers are being able to accomplish and what the teacher is able to do in that classroom. So in the end, we're just asking you to please consider it, to take everything that we've said, looking at a child's whole person, and even looking at it from a parent's perspective as well as the classroom perspective.
Awesome.
Thank
You very much.
For listening, and if you have any questions.
Go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I do have a question. In the school districts that already switched to the August 1st date, was there like a grace period of a year? Because one of the things that you mentioned was that like there's kids in preschool who are like, if we do this next summer, then there's some kids who are in preschool right now who might get left behind, the kids they went to preschool with. So I'm just wondering if there's been a grace period in the other districts that have done this.
So we looked back at some of the research, and many school districts have actually made this change back in 2017, 2018. And we had discussions with some of our administration thinking that changing it and now for the next school year would give plenty of time for parents. Our kindergarten registration typically opens in February. So if we could make this change soon, then we would have plenty of time to put that out to our community. It'd be well in advance before kindergarten registration ever occurs.
And again, remember, it is a matter of probably like roughly 12 to 15 students. So in the grand scheme of 300 students, does affect, and at least as Corinne was leading to, is that if we were able to change this sooner than later and give the parents as much time ahead of time notice, most preschool also enrollment happens in January. So they would at least be able to start looking at like another pre-K-5 program, or if they know this date now, I myself, I know as a parent, as I would be looking in this, I'd go to my preschool and make the recommendation that don't worry about the academics so much with my child. Just allow them to enjoy this year as a young 4, and then next year, and when they're in the same class repeating, then they'll be able to utilize these experiences with greater endurance, greater understanding of all of the skills and so forth.
So as the board's well aware, this is a change in policy. So that usually doesn't happen quickly, right? And it requires a process by which we will do our research to figure out how some of the other districts rolled it in. That is my greatest concern, is making sure that our families and our community are prepared for that change. As Michelle just mentioned, it was 12 students out of the 12 students out of 232 this year in our kindergarten class. So it's a significant number. Those are 12 families that probably had this date on their calendar for however many years possibly. Others may be excited about that to take the peer pressure off that they talked about a little bit. So it is a process that we would have to do through policy. So since we haven't had a policy update yet, it's coming in the next month probably. This is a policy that the board can read, consider, take into account the great information that was received tonight, and make would be the best decision for our district long term. So just to remember that whole policy thing you gotta do.
Just as an addendum to everything that's been said, I know when I was a principal, and I think you all remember that we brought this topic up many times, and one of my biggest issues with education, of course, aside from everything moving at a snail's pace, is that we have all the research, as you demonstrated. We have the research that tells us what is the right thing to do. It's just, we're very, very hesitant to do it for any number of things. And childcare is going to be one of those things that's going to rear its ugly head, but we have to be pretty steadfast about how important that year is. And regardless of how we feel about it, that self-regulation, that developmental process has got to be in place before you're asked to complete the crawl, to do all the things that you are asked to do. And as somebody that had spent primarily the greatest part of my time as an elementary school administrator, I can tell you without a doubt that in terms of the continuum of developmental levels and expectations, kindergarten teachers by far have the greatest responsibilities. I don't know why they can do what they do all day long and then go home to their own families and continue doing some more of the same. It is exhausting. And anybody will tell you in terms of the educational process, elementary schools physically really, really demanding. And as you go through the secondary classrooms, that's more intellectually demanding. So the reason for us to do this is very important in my mind. We've known what to do, and I am delighted that you've started the process with so much data.
Something you said, Eva, just to bounce off real quick. The first grade teachers notice this as well. This isn't like it's something that's small to, just isolated to just the beginning of kindergarten.
Take one too.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So you'll definitely see like the first grade teachers will come to us and they'll say, oh, and we'll look back and be like, oh, this would have been a kid that if the kindergarten start date, they would have been out. And they're like, you can see the young fives now in first grade and so forth. And, kind of goes back to that exactly like, what kind of experience do you really want these children to have those first few years of their schooling? It's vital that they want to learn, that they desire to learn, that they want to come to school, and that while they're here, that their experiences are as positive as possible. Because as soon as they start turning into that negative, like, I don't want to go, it's too hard, I don't understand it, and they're crying and there's tears involved, then what kind of experience is that really for them within those few, vital years of their education? So thank you for what you're saying. And I'm sorry that I took the words out of your mouth, Tish.
I mean, no, that was what I was going to add is like, I would add to what she was saying is it's not just kindergarten, it's your primary grades. And I don't know if I can speak, but I do have some questions.
Yeah.
If that's okay. And yeah, and I know that we've got a lot to get to tonight, so I apologize, but I do really appreciate all of the information. I should start out with my own bias in that I absolutely, in my experience as an occupational therapist, someone who has extensive training in child development and especially motoric development, we certainly know how important the development of motor skills is during the sensory motor years of life and into the preschool years. So kids learn through movement, and they need lots and lots and lots of movement to get their bodies ready to be able to sit in chairs and take in verbal information and transfer skills onto paper and all of that. So I certainly know how important those years are. My question are going to be around the systems that need to be developed within the district in order to support this. And I know that I can look at our leader and our leader of the district and building the leader that's going to have to happen, at a level. And he's talking about policy, right? So that will support that. But I do have questions regarding parents that may want acceleration. I don't know if we do that or how much we do that, but that would be a systems issue. And for the public, when I say accelerations, parents that feel that their students are academically gifted enough or have the skills to accelerate into kindergarten, should we choose this before they are 5?
And when I did read the ORC, I did read over that portion of it. And yes, the parents would technically be able to petition the board. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's what they do currently as well. Even with the September cutoff date, we often have parents that ask for early registration, early enrollment, and then they have to there's a battery of tests that they're administering.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that's still probably going to be.
Right.
And Okay, and then my question is to two teachers that are teaching our youngest student, well, not pre-K, but our some of our youngest students. You mentioned self-regulation and attention skills. You didn't present any data on academics. So I'm going to make an assumption, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that we have lots of kids that enter academically ready. You talked about the self-regulation and attention being an issue. So can you talk to me as a teacher about how much loss of instructional time you have put forward in a day in redirecting students to keep them on task, to keep them on the routine, to let them know where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to be doing. Because I think that, right, community, we need to understand that students need to come in with some level of independence and being able to comprehend the environment that they are learning in. So if you could tell us a little bit about that, like what that is like as a teacher and trying to help them learn.
I'm gonna jump in first real quick, and I'm gonna bounce back to how you started the conversation with the fact that these children need lots of wiggle time and lots of wiggling space and lots of breaks. And I think that that's what really initiated this conversation for years now, is that we've noticed that our younger students need even more of that. And yet, as the academic requirements become more stringent and our youngest children need more time to wiggle and play and move, you start to see this gap where, well, they need to be doing this, but by ODE's requirements, by our school district requirements, but yet physically and emotionally and mentally, their bodies need to be doing this. And so that's where how that gap starts, and you start to see it get wider and wider and wider, because typically the older children in the classroom setting, they're starting to acclimate. So they might come in extra wiggly, but next thing you know, their maturity is allowing them to adapt to the routines, to the structure, and to the environment, to the expectations. And so therefore they're starting to produce work that's lasting a little bit longer. And then that just like builds upon itself, and you're scaffolding until they finally have a longer amount of time. Where the break is in between. You want to there?
We feel as a kindergarten team, academics are secondary. Yes, of course, it is our job to educate these children, but we feel we can teach any child letters or numbers. The things that interfere with learning the most are those self-regulation skills, the ability to get ready to learn. Think about yourself as an adult when you're hungry. You are hungry and you can't focus on anything else that's interfering with your ability to take in information. That's how it is for these little children coming into kindergarten. They aren't able to take in new information of learning letters, learning numbers, if they don't have the stamina that they need to sit through the lesson, if they haven't been able to get their body ready, they haven't gotten their wiggles out. So while we every day are doing things to counteract and prepare our students for learning, there's a noticeable difference between the older children in the class and the younger children in class, and their stamina and their ability to take in new information to be ready to learn.
Does it impact your instructional time?
Yes,
absolutely.
And you can see, and I think Mrs. Pagan did a nice job earlier of explaining how it's a ripple effect where those youngest students or those neediest students are then taking away from the instructional time in your day, because you are having to redirect them, give them an opportunity for a break. You are teaching those self-regulation skills, which then takes away from academic teaching. So
as well as the continuity of the day. Like you're constantly you're losing so much instructional time, not necessarily just because you're stopping in that moment, but now you've lost maybe the 4 or 5 others that were almost there. And now you've got to kind of backpedal in order to catch those that you just lost. So you figure, like, if you look at kind of like that learning triangle of like you have your top students, and no matter what I do, those kids were just going to learn anyway. And then you have that middle branch, and those are the kids that are definitely affected the most. But I did that the opposite. This way, yeah, there we go. And then they're the ones that they're gonna. And then you've got this tiny crew, and this tiny crew though they tend to like kind of just dribble over like the whole pile, and their behaviors affect the learning of everybody underneath in that triangle setting. So yes, it definitely interferes with instruction that in that immediate situation, as well as the ripple effect of trying to pull back the kids that they now lost because she's over here playing with me and now I'm playing with her and now they watched me play and now I want to see what they were playing and then blah, 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 blah. You know, it's.
So it's my turn to cut in. And, you know, as you can see, we have two extremely passionate educators. And we have 9 others who aren't here that would probably want to be here as well.
Yes, they did.
And I want to just go back to one thing they talked about, how kindergarten is our family's first impression of our school district. We only get one chance. And that starts with Mrs. Toth and her team, Mr. Hartland and the kindergarten team. They get one chance to make a first impression. And this goes into making that first impression for our families. This is a process that we have to follow. We just can't make the change on the dime, okay? So we will start that process. We will have further conversation. And as the public doesn't always know, as a Board of Education, we do work in between meetings. We get a lot of these questions that we may not have the opportunity to ask tonight answered, or if you think of it in the next couple of days, myself, Dr. Martin, Mrs. Toth with the team can get whatever information that we need. But I so appreciate your guys' time after a long day in the classroom. All I know is I did half-day kindergarten and had nap time in that half-day kindergarten back in 1980, whatever. So kindergarten has definitely changed. That was one of the things that I really wanted to get across today was that kindergarten and the demands on our our youngest learners has increased dramatically. We do a great job,
Tenfold.
but this
Thank
is
you.
something that the team would just like us to consider, and we wanted to have this conversation tonight. So I did not want to take away from anybody else asking a question, but I feel like Mark and I have to have my timer go off once in a while to keep, especially for Dr. Martin, who's coming up next. So anything else that is a burning desire to be answered on the spot, I didn't want to take that opportunity away.
Thank you very much.
I just had one question, which is, you know, this all sounds great. Like, what's the downside? I understand the transition. If you're going to go, there's some unevenness with how does that transition work, but this seems like, what's the downside?
I think you mentioned it for those 12 families.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Who have been preparing and they have plans that their child is going to be there this fall. for the rec ball ride.
So it's part of the transition.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, think of the benefit of the other people.
Right.
And we can create a system to be able to maybe handle that.
But and those families could apply to be accelerated, right? If they feel their children are
Right.
socially, emotionally
Yes.
ready and,
Mhm.
you know.
Yes.
they're-
It's
Ohio
not like
revised code is that's
Right.
state law, so
That's
yes,
law.
that will still be an option. if They want to apply for the early entry.
And I don't have a question, but just a comment. Thank you for this great presentation and just, I appreciate Ava and Tish and your educational expertise. I can't speak to that, but just as a parent, like I have always looked to you guys for like your expertise. And I know I was talking to another parent and we were talking about, you know, when do you enter kindergarten, things like, she was telling me, she goes, you know, my daughter had a later birthday and the district said this was the cutoff date. And I thought, if that's what they say is readiness, then I will just send her. So I think like having this conversation is important because our parents do look to us to say, this is when kids are typically ready for kindergarten. So if that's not what we're seeing and that's not what the research indicates, we need to let them know to say, this is what is actually the reality. And this is what actually we feel as a district is best and would really help your child, set them up for the future and help them learn in the classroom. So as a parent, I have always looked to you guys and I appreciate your expertise. And I think a lot of our parents felt the same way too. They want to hear this information from us and that to know that, you know, there's pathways. If I look at my child and I say, you know what, they are ready and there's a way to accelerate, there's a way to hold back. And, you know, there's a lot of avenues if you know your child personally to do that. So sorry, I'm going off. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very
Thank you for allowing us to share our passion with all of you.
Doctor?
Hold on, I just give me a second, give me a second. I gotta get my tabs organized to keep you in Jeff's separated, so yours are the first two tabs. There's a timer on that mouse. It stops working. Stops working after 10 minutes.
See, okay, let's go, where's the state report card one?
There's
Oh,
one more there. Okay.
There you go. Awesome. All right. Good evening. I can't make the same promise, and I don't want to break any promises. So I'm not going to say I'm going to be brief. 'Cause I don't think I'm going to be brief. Don't grab your,
No one was expecting that, Dave.
I saw you run forward. So yeah, I can't be brief because we have a lot to celebrate. We really, really do. There is a lot to celebrate. So I stand before you and I want to congratulate our teachers, our administrators, our parents, you, the board, most of all, our students. Our students accomplished amazing things last year. Their academic performance was through the roof. So again, it's a team, it's a system, and I don't think I've ever seen us so together than this moment. So I'm going to go through this report card with you. Lots and lots to celebrate. Still have opportunities and areas of focus and places to go. So lots of great news. First of all, for the first time ever, we as BBHCSD have earned an overall 5-star rating, not just in overall, but in all component areas: achievement, progress, gap closing, graduation, and early literacy. First time ever. So to grasp the significance of that, in my fervor to download data and analyze performance index ratings and so forth, I'm going to give a shout out to a board member who let Jeff know that we are one of 18 districts out of 607 that earned 5 stars in all component areas. Let that sink in. One of 18 out of 607. So Lisa, thank you for telling Jeff. Jeff, thank you for telling me.
Team up.
I'm buried in numbers looking at performance indexes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got 5 stars and everything, and that's one of 18. So thank you. That was good news. I'm just going to scroll down quickly here. And there's some really cool information here. We always hover around 36, 37, maybe 3,800 students. We're pretty stable and have been for quite some time. This is a great number. We're going to talk a little bit more about it. There were some opportunities here. We were going the wrong direction when I was here at this time last year. 15% of our students in the district were marked as chronically absent. The state was catching up to us. We were going the wrong way and the state was going down. That was 15. This year, it's 11.2. We're going to get in those single digits. So kudos to our administration, our school counselors, our parents for getting our kids here and keeping them here, because that's an important data point. There's another little number here, 32. And I think they just started adding it. It's interesting that they would put this front and center on the home page. These are recently arrived EL students. So they're excluded from accountability. They take the test, which is tough because we might have a new student from the Ukraine that's here for a week and they sit for a test. They don't count on these metrics. So 32 excluded, we've never had that many before. And I think that's very telling. So we'll talk more about our EL students as well. I'm just so proud of our buildings. If you look at the first building, our elementary school, the overall rating last year was 4. They've gone to 5. Achievement is a 5. They had a 5 last year. They had a 2 in progress last year. They're up to 3. And don't forget, I'm going to explain what a 5-star means. It means you significantly exceed state standards. They're still accessing state standards. They're still at that level at 3. So that is promising. A 5 in gap closing and a 5 in early literacy. So that's the first time ever. Our high school, 2 years in a row, 5 stars in all component areas, 2 years in a row. Our high school also increased their performance index, we're going to talk a little bit about. So very, very strong showing there. And our middle school, same ratings as last year. I did a quick review. This 4, I believe there are only 10 middle schools of our caliber of high performance that had a 5-star. So there's 1,100 middle schools, and most of them got 4 or lower. So good news there. Let's go down here. Could talk a little bit about performance index. I'm sorry, this is really, really small, but I just want to give you this visual. I know you've got it. Everyone knows what happened in 2020, COVID. Before 2020, we had a 108 performance index, and we started to creep up. I think that's a 101. Where are my glasses?
You can make that bigger, Dave.
That's okay. Don't do anything simple. You know that. 101.6 coming out of COVID, then a 104.8, 106.5, and this year we get. You just had to do it, didn't you? You had to do it. We earned a 106.8. So performance index. We're going to go into next. Hit achievement here. Performance index, just to give you a quick 101 lesson on performance index, which is, oh, here it is, calculation. The performance index is the most stable, fair, and accurate measure that the state has used over time. I think it's been in effect for going on 3 decades. That gives a school district a really good snapshot of an assessment in time and whether or not students mastered standards. The growth, which we're going to get to that will measure student achievement over time. This is like the 1-year thing. So we always want to push kids, into that proficient 700 scale score. We want to push them in that proficient because that is weighted as a full 1. You start getting higher than that, 1.1 and accomplish, advanced 1.2, and advanced plus. You're going to see our math scores are through the roof because we can get a lot of kids taking advanced math, taking off grade state tests. So we really, really flourish in that area. And you'll see here, we had 7.3% of our students taking off grade tests or advanced plus levels. So really, really promising there on the performance index. And this is kind of what I was alluding to before. You can see here the performance index on the top over time. These are the performance levels gaining. What?
It's trying to snooze you.
Where is this here? Remind me tonight. Where's
Snooze.
snooze? Right there. Down, left, right there.
Advanced plus.
One point for each.
So you see our performance index as it over the last 5 years, obviously ticking up there. We're not done yet. Pre-pandemic, we were at 108. We want to definitely get at that 108 and higher. But you're going to see some interesting statistics later that for the size of our district, we're doing really well. Let's go back quickly to the schools and kind of scroll down here. So in the achievement rating, we always do, Buckner Bobby Heights always does very, very well in the achievement. There's a lot to celebrate at the elementary school. The elementary last year, their performance index was a 104.6. They had the single highest gain of almost a 1 unit in a performance index of 0.9. So they went up to 105.5. That is the single highest gain out of all the buildings in the district. Our high school exceeded the 108 threshold. So they're at 108.1. They were at 107.4 last year, and they still improved. And our middle school stayed strong as well. They're at a 107. So just very, very proud of the gains that are made and continue to be made at all of the buildings. Progress. So you're going to see here, again, we talked about achievement, that sort of snapshot in time. How do they learn the standards in that year? Progress, this is, you can measure it a 3-year combined, a 2-year combined, a 1-year combined. It's based on value added. What kind of growth can we expect these children to make by school, by district, by content area, and by subgroup? So again, once we're able to calculate the performance index, we can then look at the value added. Anything in the green, blue, and charcoal here, anything here and up. So this is evidence that they made that 1 year's growth. Anything green is 1 year's growth. Teachers did their job. We're all cooking with gas. You start getting into the blue, then they're exceeding what was expected. The growth is exceeding. You get to that charcoal, that dark area here, that is exceeding at a very large magnitude. So as a visual, check it out. These are all tests over here. Check out the growth that was made. This is the growth that was our students were supposed to make. They didn't just make it. They made it at a large magnitude across the board. We're going to talk a little bit about this later. 5th grade science, along with some other things. But for right now, this is just amazing. Math is traditionally outperformed ELA, largely because they can take the Advanced Plus and off-grade tests. But still very, very promising growth, value added in all content areas. All right. How am I doing on time?
I don't know. I'm not cutting in yet.
All right, let's go to gap closing. I often, this is what I think about a lot on Friday and Saturday night. I'm like, you know what? Which one is my favorite component? I mean, do you ever think about that? Like, which one is your favorite component? I haven't asked that question, but lately, I would say in the last 24 hours, gap closing has become my favorite component. Mm-hmm. Achievement initially, but I would say gap closing, it's my favorite. And this is why. So again, we hit up the difference between achievement and growth. And again, the nice thing is we can disaggregate this by content, by subgroup, by grade level, by school. We can even calculate, if you're really geeky, you can calculate performance index by classroom, and that's always fun. So achievement, this is that sort of 1 year snapshot. ELA, strong. Our students are accessing the curriculum. They're achieving. They're hitting the mark. Math, we clearly know that too. You get down to growth and we see we only earn 1 point out of 8. And there are some areas for opportunities with ELA growth district-wide in the aggregate, but also at the various buildings. And math, no. You're going to see a little bit later as we scroll down how we are absolutely hitting it out of the park with our math growth. Graduation, we are fine. Our EL learners, strong. There is a difference between newcomers, and if we can keep them in our district and we can keep the mobility down and they stay with us for 3 or more years, and then they get into that 4 to 7 year mark and they start to become native and truly bilingual, this is when they're accessing the curriculum at a higher level, passing state tests and excelling in Brecksville Broadview Heights. Our gifted is good, except one area. We'll talk a little bit about that. When we drill down, we're not going to be able to see much on the graphs, but when we drill down by content, we do need to address gifted district-wide ELA. So get down here again, achievement on top. The red dot in the middle here is the goal the state sets for. So all districts have the exact same goal. And these are our subgroups. So we got ELA on the left, math on the right, and you can just kind of hover over it. A good mark here is overall. So again, calculating the performance index by subgroups and then comparing it gives you a really good picture of where we're missing the mark and what we're doing well in. So ELA, all students, so 104.5. So you can see here as you hover, this is our economically disadvantaged. So there is an achievement gap, 104, versus 94. Hispanic, Asian, multiracial. EL, one would think that that gap would be bigger, but it's not. Black, white, students with disabilities. This is the achievement side. Math, same story over here. So you hover over, you can see in the aggregate, all of our subgroups are far exceeding the state minimum goals, but we want to do better. This is where it gets really, really interesting. So on the left, again, we have the growth ELA. On the right, we have growth math. As I told you before, this is kind of unheard of. Actually, the state called me twice. What's going on with math? This is out of the park. Anything between a -1, -2, depends on if you're at the district or the building level. Anything between these thresholds and 2, you've made that expected growth. Anything over 2 is more than expected growth at a large magnitude. Now check our math out. I mean, our growth is like in the teens because we have a lot of good things going on. We have one set curriculum at the K-5 level that we've used for going on 8 years. And we have Ready Classroom Math, and we have CPM Math at 612. That's been steady going on 9 years. So teachers know what they're doing. They got the materials. Kids have access to advanced classes. That is impressive. Very impressive. So what's really even impressive is this mark here. So I know that there was an achievement gap with our students with disabilities. However, they're exceeding the growth. They're exceeding that threshold there. And it's not just students with disabilities, it's everyone. EL, it's all of them, all of our subgroups. In math, we are cooking with gas in math, and it is strong. But check out the subgroup that made the most value-added gain, exceeded expectations. This is the group of students with disabilities in ELA. So in both categories, although there still is achievement gap and we need to address that, they are making progress. I told you this is my favorite component. It's my favorite component. It's a fun component. We scroll down. Graduation, obviously we're still strong there. This is the OELPA, the only way to exit our English language learner program is if you score a 4, all 4s and all 5s on the spring OELPA test. The writing is really hard. So reading, writing, speaking, and listening, the writing is really hard. And a lot of kids will stay in there for several years due to that, but that's state law. But we're still doing very well. This is the goal. And these are the percent of students that are exceeding that. So very strong. Again, I talked a little bit about this. We got to keep up the momentum. We almost dropped 4 full percentage points with chronic absenteeism, and we'll get there. We never make this and have never made this, and I don't think I know a district that does. We are trying to find creative solutions on how to expand our gifted identification and services met. That really means you have to dig down in those subgroups and you have to start trying to identify and qualify as gifted some of these groups, economic disadvantage, etc. So I don't know. It doesn't really affect us a lot, but it is on our report card, and there are conversations about that and have had conversations about that for several years. All right. Bring it home.
Mm-hmm.
Graduation. Again, we're strong in that component, and that's a 4-year and a 5-year. Although I will say, if we go back to, I'm sorry, go back to my favorite component here, gap closing. You look at graduation by subgroup. We do have to think about that. You know, we have a gap between some subgroups and all students. So all students are graduating at 96.5%, and some subgroups are not. So you think about that, but that's not 100 kids. That's a handful of kids. So we got to figure out how we can best meet their needs and to graduate. All right. No, I think this is my favorite. Yeah, I think it's your favorite too. Yeah, I think it's your favorite. Yeah, it's now. Early literacy. Again, we were really, really excited. I am gonna now sort of thank two board members for a conversation we had over 2 years ago. Mark and Tish approached me and we started talking about, well, what are you gonna do? This science of reading's coming. There seems to be this shift in ELA, the curriculum in the state. And I needed that conversation and I needed the hard questions. So thank you. Because of that starting point and those conversations, I think we got here. We've had a ton of training. Our teachers have a ton of training. We've been able to implement some more effective assessments that fairly and accurately assess our kindergartners coming in and our first graders. So we've been able to meet this metric. And again, now, if we didn't have 90% on that kindergarten metric in kindergarten, we wouldn't be able to have that NC not count, which is a good thing because it does mean we're using the right assessments. But again, 100% of our students were promoted to fourth grade. They either made it outright on the OST in third grade, or they made it on an alternative assessment such as iReady, or they had an exemption on their IEP, which was a very small amount. And then the proficiency on the third grade. So 5 stars there. Lots of celebration. Excellent job. All right. Oh, there's more. There's more. There's more.
Pick it up.
Pick it up. District level ratings. Outright, we are 15th in the state. If you just take the top 15, we are 15th in the state. Lineup 607, we're 15th in the state outright. However, is that a fair comparison? It is. But if you control for size and performance index, Solon, which has got over 4,500 students, Hudson, 44, 46, and then we're in third. So he beat us by just
106.9 and 106.8.
He's upset about
I am. But it drops off after us. Rocky River's got over 1,000 less. West G, 1,600. These smaller districts. Marion local, it's a little tiny district. Whole district 910. They're number 1 in the state. So controlling for enrollment.
They wouldn't even fill our elementary building.
Right.
So. All right, gets better. High school ranking. So this was a fun afternoon. You know how hard it is to find exactly how many public high schools there are in the state of Ohio? Just public schools, not community, not charter, not private. I have an estimate of 600. It does, doesn't it? Do you know the number?
606, 607, 609.
So out of the 600 public high schools in Ohio, Brecksville Broadway Heights High School is outright 8 with our performance index. Outright 8. But there's more to the story. If you control for enrollment, we are second in the state. And second to it, Walnut Hills has got 2491. You thought you were big. So that's big school. This was really fun. This was about an hour to do. So I think there are 1,700 public elementary schools in Ohio. And it gets really fun because some are pre-K5, some are K5, some are K4, some are pre-K4, some are 3.5, some are 3.8, some are it is what it is. But if you control for size, we're not even close. Look, our performance index and our size 1704 is what we reported last year. The next nearest type of elementary school in New Albany, that's a 1-3 school, is a little over 1,000. That's a 3-5. That's a K-5 there, Moreland Hills.
Well, that has a performance index like this.
And middle school. So there's about 1,100 public middle schools in Ohio. We're outright 8. Our middle school is outright 8 with their performance index. You want to take a guess? Number one. We beat Solon. So, well, because Solon had 760, we had almost 780. So
Would this be you spinning the data?
spinning. So this is, look, data's not a hammer, it's a flashlight. I'm providing data. You can interpret it. It's like good art, right? You can interpret it. I am providing what I see as interpreting interesting data points. So we do have some things we need to work on. You know, some opportunities here. Students with disability achievement versus growth. We saw that our students with disability as a cohort subgroup, their growth, they are making progress. We're going to have to accelerate that. As district-wide, we've got to close that gap. And Cassie and I frequently meet, and we have got some things on the front burner that we want to address and implement. I mentioned gifted, identify gifted students, ELA, district-wide. So the nice thing too, it doesn't really come out here. I have access to the secure data center, which I've included in some board updates, and it will show me, it'll give a star rating to certain subgroups as well. So our gifted ELA district-wide has gotten like 1 star over the last 3 years. We're trying to figure out, is it because it's difficult to take an off-grade test in ELA versus math? And then why is because when our gifted population is compared to a quintile in value added with other students around the state, why are they not making the expected growth that they should be making? So we're trying to figure out what's the function of this. Is it a curriculum issue? Is it an instruction issue? Is it a measurement issue? It's not an easy answer. Chronic absenteeism, we're not there yet. 11.2 is good. We got to get in the single digits. College career workforce and military readiness. It's a non-report this year, but we're getting a grade next year. And if you look at a lot of the high performing districts, us, Solon, we would probably get like 3 stars right now. That is a massive data conundrum, and our data isn't right. So we've got to figure that out, and we've got to figure out how we can get good data reported to the state so it's an accurate rating when it comes out next year. And then 5th grade science, that seems to be an anomaly. That seems to be low every year. The value added is high in all the contents and the grade levels around it. So we've got to get in there and figure out what's going on. That's like 3 minutes, right, Mark?
Questions?
I didn't. Still going?
Maybe out of 0 or 2. That's good.
Yeah.
Dave, do you have data on the alternate assessments for special ed?
I can get that to you. Yeah, I don't have.
I just wonder what impact it has in terms of.
It's separate from this.
Okay.
It does not look good anywhere in the state.
Right.
75% of students, right? 75% of students are limited or basic for alternate assessment, and it's a tough one. I can get you more information. I can give you some screenshots if you want. Thanks. Anything else?
I just wanted to say congrats and thanks for all the hard work. I mean, this is amazing. And I guess I'm just, the military and career readiness, how is that evaluated?
We don't have time.
No days.
I look at Jeff. I grabbed the mouse like hold on.
Everybody's asking that same question. And how is it going to be measured? How is the data going to be collected? And is the data solid? Like every high school principal right now is sweating bullets, worrying about next year when that rating will be reported.
Okay.
It's actually, it looks better in the secure data center and I can do it. So so ACT participation, students who students who took the ACT. So it's the percent that took, we don't think that's right, but I don't know. And then there's a remediation free score. I think is it 21? Oh yeah, 22, sorry, 18 in English, 22 in math, 21 in reading. So if you took the ACT, you scored higher than those thresholds, you get a remediation, we get points for that. And that plays into this grade. We are an SAT district, so 92.4% of our students took the SAT. And then there's a remediation free score, I believe. Yeah, so 430 on writing, 450 in reading, and 420 on math. On the ACT. Honors diploma, we do pretty good, but we think we have higher than 38.8. But you're seeing, like, this starts to get into this data nightmare. Like, is this a one spreadsheet, a million spreadsheets? Advanced placement participation, 3 or better on an AP score, dual enrollment. We don't have an IB program, so we don't get any points there. Military enlistment, we had 2 kids stand up in graduation. So I know we have students that are joining the military, apprenticeships, these things.
And can I ask a question about that? CVCC is their own IRN, right? They're their own. So we are not going to be able to take any of that data of our students that participate there. You don't know.
No one gives me the answer. Like
And considering it's a half-day program, how does that factor in compared to if I
Right.
went to a career center where it's a full-day program? So those are all the questions that we have gotten little feedback from the state yet as to why. And just like the military one, it's like, where are they getting that number from? Because we know we have students who are enlisting.
We do. Am I allowed to ask a question? Go back
Absolutely.
to the.
oh yeah.
Okay.
Please.
So graduation, right? When you were showing students with disabilities, some of the graduation lag, could that be from IEP teams making the decision for students to remain past credit worthiness for continuation of the IEP?
Yes.
Okay.
They stay till 22, right?
Now that's a question for every IEP team every year, right? So the IEP team determines once a child's credit worthy, if they need to remain because of skills they need to gain through that IEP. So that could, when we look at that rate, it's not really fair to say that we're kind of lagging because that's individualized for students with disabilities.
I was thinking more of the students that would drop out and did have an IEP.
Okay.
I do think there's plenty of factors, and those are
Okay.
something that we talk about during those meetings as well. We want to work harder kids to get readiness for it, but it is an individual IEPs again when we talk about readiness skills.
Okay. And then I guess my only comment is that I wondered if I was going to even be able to say anything tonight because like it took me a couple days to calm down enough just to text Jeff because of how fired up and excited I was about when the scores were released and when we were made aware. I don't know that there is enough to say that there's enough for me to convey my deep appreciation for the district and the fact that I live here and that my children have been educated here. The deep appreciation for the work that you've done. Kudos to the elementary school. That growth is just unbelievable. I mean, I think it needs to be said, thank you for that. I mean, there was a lot of concerns about the elementary school, right? For the last couple of years, they're rocking it out. They're killing it. I just think that you guys really deserve the kids, the staff, all of the work. Kudos to you guys. I'm so proud to be a part of it. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Anything else?
Ditto.
Kind of a mic drop moment, right? Doctor?
Yeah, the same, congratulations. It's great. You shared this at the PSO council meeting, just like a little preview of it. And one of the funniest things is it's the data just come out the night before. And you mentioned like anxiously awaiting and like refreshing the site until the data come out. I'm like, that's just so you. So thank you.
And I'm gonna admit it's not necessarily healthy either. As I get text messages at odd hours.
But I mean, thank you for this presentation. I appreciate all the hard work and of course, like to our staff at all the buildings, to our families, our community for all their support, and of course, our
100%.
And you, thanks to the board. Appreciate the partnership and the systems thinking, so thank you.
Thank you. Congrats.
Bring back that mouse.
That's what Craig's been concerned about a little bit.
I have a problem.
I turn it over again shortly.
I think I'm gonna stay right here and let you run it, so that you can keep me moving probably. So, I just want to share with the board tonight. I mean, we've had passionate educators speak, and I know sometimes when we build the agenda, I'm like, oh, is this gonna go long? Well, this is the night it should go long. When we get to talk about things like that and progress that we make, I sit here and look at my pile of, public comment, and we have none. And then I peek at Craig's screen and see online we have no one. And I'm just thinking, man, they are missing the work that is done in this district that makes our community proud. I can also look at that and say, they're satisfied in the job that we do and trust what we do. That I will also say that openly. I know people will go back and watch this meeting, but the things that Dr. Martin is able to point out in our data isn't everything, and 5 stars is not everything. I've had people ask me, well, don't you want to beat Solon? Don't you want to beat Rocky River? And I'm not going to necessarily use districts by name, but I don't want to be anyone else. I want to be Brecksville, Broadview Heights. And with that, we are the destination district because of the well-rounded experience that our students get and the variety of options that they have. And I will second what Tish said about the elementary school. We said it last year at this time when there was growth made with all of the growing pains of opening a new building and things flowing down the hallway on the first day and things like that. And they made growth. And then yet again, we still have concerns, some legitimate, of things that we still need to make adjustments to, but our kids and our staff are getting the work done. So very, very proud of them, the middle school, the high school, all of the students, parents. We couldn't do it without the support. So that's great information. We're going to celebrate some of that again in October, on October 30th with the State of the Schools. What I'm going to share with you tonight is going to be a quick 30,000 foot flyover. Okay, I'm not going to go super deep because I've kept you pretty up to speed on a lot of this. I gave a lot of it to you to chew on in the board report last week. So I will just kind of go over relatively quickly. I hope you found at your chairs your official BBH t-shirt that the whole staff has this year. It has been kind of become practice on Fridays that many of our staff members wear it. The first Friday of the school year, every single member of our staff had that shirt on. And what a message it sends to our families and to our kids that we're on the same page. And it has our 3-second message about our strategic plan, which is educate, empower, and engage. It's kind of, there's a little bit of marketing to this, right? We need to have that 3-second message. We are here. We are going to educate, empower, and engage. And that is not only our students, our staff, and our community. So with that, what you have at your table, this is a rough draft. Even though it looks pretty nice, it's a rough draft. Jim Crooks tells me it came off a printer and not a press. So if you see some font, some is darker than others, it's because it's coming out of a printer. We were making adjustments up to today with this. There's one error in here that we found even after looking at it 1,000 times. We only printed 10 of them, so you could have one to kind of look and see what that finished product's going to look like. You'll see this booklet throughout our community. It'll be with the chamber, with Kiwanis. Anytime I do presentations, this will go along with it. It kind of is our strategic plan in a nutshell. It's not that big D3 binder that everybody just throws on a shelf and forgets about. This is more of the marketing piece of our strategic plan, because the strategic plan really is a working document. It is what we as an administrative team and staff of our school district use to do the work. So many times in education, we get so ingrained in it has to look pretty. It has to be this product that we put out there for everybody to see, and it's grandiose plans. We're doing strategic planning a little bit different. We're going to find out what our community values, what they will support, and then how are we going to do that as a school district. And that's what we hope to do here in this presentation. So if you could flip over the PowerPoint for me, Craig, please. This is basically the digital version of the book that you have in front of you. So let's head down to the third slide there. So the third slide is going to show you, and it's tough to read here. I would consider this our founding document: who we are, where we're going, and what we value. So the mission and vision was born through the administrative team and through all of the staff engagement sessions that we had, and was informed by the strategic survey that went out to our community. So as I said a little bit ago, our mission is very simple. We are here to educate, empower, and engage. And we're going to do that each and every single day we're here. And you even seen it tonight with the kindergarten presentation. They're going to use it against me. And I say that in a very positive way, right? So when they come and we as administrative team or teachers have initiatives that we want to do, the first lens or filter should be run through is how is it going to educate, empower, and engage. So we are going to rigorously educate, we're going to boldly empower, and we are going to collectively engage our community. Our vision is to be the destination district. And this is on the screen, you see it's changed, it is a destination district. I will be a little bit selfish and self-centered and say we are the destination district. But that is our vision, is to be a destination district where people want to work, learn, and enjoy. And that goes for everybody that's in this district, from students, our youngest pre-K, to our seniors, to our staff, and our maintenance team even. Our values, these values right here is a result of the community survey. Our community overwhelmingly told us they value academic excellence, providing innovative learning opportunities for all. They clearly told us they value the finest educators and staff. And if you read through that community survey results, you saw that over and over again. They value transparent, engaging, and collaborative communications. And you saw some of the modes at which they like to have those communications, which may have been surprising to some. We value school safety and security and protocol thought actions that create a welcoming school environment. That's a welcoming school environment for all students. We value responsible stewardship of dynamic resources, and we value comprehensive preparedness of our students' future successes. It is clear through the data we collected from our community, that is what they value. And our culture is be your best, be the future, be one community. Moving on to the next slide, it was about almost a year ago, a little less than a year ago, we started talking about the planning process for the strategic plan. So we started that in November, December of 23, and then we started the march down these honeycombs, down the left side and back up to the right. It all culminates on October 30th at 7 p.m. in the high school cafeteria, where we will have our first State of the Schools, which will become an annual tradition for Westwood Broadview Heights. I have tried to coordinate with both cities the best I can to make sure that it was on a date that most people were available. Invitations will be going out to certain individuals and groups to make sure they're there. We hope to have a large crowd to hear all the wonderful things that are going on in our school district. Not only our 5-star rating, but also all the great experiences our students have. We are planning to recognize 2 business sponsors or business partners. I'm going to call them sponsors. It's not about dollars. It's about their sponsorship and their investment in our school district and in ways that they give back to our students. So we will recognize 2 business partners. We will talk about innovative programming that we have going on. That will be 1 hour. We'll be in and out, some light refreshments, celebrating. Spoiler alert, and hopefully there aren't people watching, but we'd have another big award that we will be able to announce on September 23rd. We have gotten word. And so on September 23rd, we have great news coming. Okay, just like Cedar Point has a big release of a ride tomorrow on the 19th, us on the 23rd, we have a big announcement coming. So stay tuned for the 23rd of September. So what did we do and who did we engage? We go to the next slide, please. Over 1,000 individuals in our school family were either interviewed, I met with personally, or surveyed, or called on the phone to pour into this strategic plan. 400 individuals took part in the scientific survey, over 286 in the Google online survey. 100 individuals gave us open-ended feedback that I read often because I think it's raw and it's real, and there's a lot of emotion in those open-ended comments. More than 100 staff members participated in different engagement sessions. 189 staff members shared open-ended feedback. It takes a lot of guts when you as a staff member ask for open feedback and they give it in plenty to make us a better district. 75 citizens attended our community engagement forum, 8 meetings with district administrators throughout the year to create the strategic plan, which will be our North Star for the next 3 years. So on to the next slide, it just states here our mission, our vision, and our motto, protect the banner of BBHCSD. Then on the next page or the next slide, you're going to see our portrait of a graduate, which looks radically different than the crosshairs that's on the wall behind us here. It's the same great work because there was a great stakeholder engagement that created our portrait of a graduate, and it is good work, but it just needed rebranded a little bit, and that's what we did here. So we still are talking about emotionally prepared, globally responsible, self-reliant, and future-ready. And yes, there are more than just our school colors up there, which is meant to be encompassing all students as well as with our puzzle pieces. So it's our portrait of or not our portrait of a graduate, correct me. It's our attributes of a B, because it is more than just our graduates. Next piece is our strategic priorities. This was after we received all the data from the surveys. These are our strategic priorities. And I don't know if these strategic priorities would ever change, to be quite honest with you. The first, talking about becoming one of the top 5 school districts in the state based on relevant metrics. The second one is all students pre-K-12 will have access to resources, staffing, instructional practices, programs, and curricula needed. 3 talks about our ongoing community collaboration. 4 talks about trust and accountability and fiscal awareness. And 5, having the best possible facilities for our teachers to teach in and our students to learn in. So those are our strategic priorities. That's the 50,000-foot view. As we interviewed staff and students and community members, this is what are our strategic priorities. Moving to the next slide, or page 8 in your book, there is our educate, empower, and engage. So if we were at the 50,000-foot view, this is kind of like the 20,000-foot view. For example, in empower, we're going to celebrate staff and student accomplishments. We don't do too bad of a job celebrating student accomplishments because it's pretty easy, right? But I am simply amazed in this district at the level at which we achieve and the standard at which our community has, that we don't take the time to recognize distinguished service or going the extra mile or really calling out those employees that have really poured into our students over the years. So we want to make sure that we continue to empower our staff, both certified and classified, in the great work that they do. We want to continue to develop leadership opportunities for staff, like our teacher on assignment this year with Jody Tomsick and Beth Adams. We took teachers out of the classroom to provide professional development and support to their colleagues, which is research proven to be best practice. And we gave them an opportunity to lead. And in some cases, maybe in the future, teachers will come out of the classroom and do teacher on assignment in an area of maybe administration, because maybe they want to be an administrator. Or maybe after serving in a year in that role, go, I'll take my classroom every day, all day long. So it gives our staff, and we continue to pour into our staff, because our community values the finest educators. And to have the finest educators, you need to give them opportunity and help continue to develop them. This next one, which is going to come across many different areas through the 3 years, is development of essential life skills in addition to classroom skills. We knock it out of the park, 5 stars across the board. We do pretty darn good in academics. How are we doing in life skills? And I'd look at many of you who are parents of children in our district and say, were they prepared for whatever the next stage of life was? And I'm not talking about with algebra or language arts or history. Could they balance a checkbook? Could they change a tire? Could they cook themselves a meal? I'm going to tell you what, I think my wife is more excited with the fact when my son calls from college, when he's making dinner for his roommates and he's calling, asking for a recipe, or he's sending a photo of the meal that he made, than she is on any grade on his report card. So, in the survey, you notice, if you read through there, our community is very aware of the fact that we need to continue to teach life skills, soft skills, those skills that are going to set them apart from their peers. In the Educate forum, we're going to implement a district professional learning plan. Instead of just trying to attack the immediate, we're going to be proactive. We're going to look forward. We're going to have a plan so that if we do and need to adjust a school calendar, we do it in plenty of time to be able to have a successful start to a school year like this year. We are going to make sure that we are planning for future initiatives and not hitting it at the last minute where we are unprepared or we don't roll it out or support it in the way that we should. So we are going to do that top to bottom. We're going to redesign the MTSS process. MTSS is multi-tiered systems of support, and we're going to continue to get better at that. What has set our district apart for so many and allows us to achieve at the level we do is our level of collaboration with our PLCs and the work that was done probably a decade ago in our district. Well, we need to recalibrate PLCs, make sure we're still doing the work and the work that needs to be done, because that is what sets our district apart from others. We have carved out time for our staff to be able to collaborate with one another during the workday, and we need to make sure we're using it as effectively as possible, and we have the tools to do that. And we're going to assess all district resources. This is kind of the all students. Do our special ed students and teachers have the resources they need to be successful? Do our gifted students and educators have the tools they need to be successful? And we're going to take a look across the district at our resources. And that's assess rather than audit. People get a little bit more nervous when we say audit. Engage. This is probably where I'm super excited about, and I think is really where my role comes in all of this as well, is we are going to create strategic partnerships. We are very fortunate that we have some strategic partnerships already, but there are some partnerships that we need to maximize. Sherwin-Williams being one of them. I mean, their World Research headquarters is opening and partially opened in Val Acres. Why do we not have a strategic partnership with Sherwin-Williams? Why are we not feeding Sherwin-Williams some of the best talent available? That's what we want to do. We also want to expose our students to the opportunities that are available here in Northeast Ohio, so they don't feel as though they need to go somewhere else to have some of those same opportunities. We're going to identify opportunities for enhanced communications, and then we're going to pursue our campus master planning. So that is the 20,000-foot view, and that's kind of the public view of the strategic plan. And I'm going to go one step further and show you kind of where the work happens for us. And it's the action items document, if you don't mind. I shared this in the board report with you, but this is the accountability piece of it that I told you when we went down this road of strategic planning, that we need to be held accountable to these things. And if you could scroll down just a little, right to engage, let's go there. I'm gonna start with engage because I'm really excited about some of these. That strategic partnership one, we're gonna create our own business advisory council. We kind of piggyback off the ESC with many other districts, and we do the business advisory council. We could check it off with the state. We need our own. We need to bring our business leaders in our two cities in to feed into our district, how we can better prepare students, and then also expose them to the wonderful students we have. I want to investigate and institute a career coach and business liaison because it is that important to help students identify future careers and their best path to those careers, which it may be college or university, or it may be other means. And then career exploration opportunities. The most expensive career exploration opportunity in the United States of America is college or university. It is extremely expensive for your son or daughter to go to a college or university, a state school at $27,000 a year to figure out what they want to do. We need to do a better job of helping our students identify what they want to do. We need to do a better job of helping our students understand what are their strengths and how they'll leverage their strengths to a career field. Also helping them identify their strengths also helps in the mental health and well-being of our students as well earlier in their career. So we can go back to the top, Craig, if you don't mind, and just pop open the MTSS one, maybe. No, I'm sorry. You can do the BTALC. Any of the links is fine, I think. Okay. Yep. So this is the work and where the work's being done. This isn't necessarily for public consumption. This is internal document. In each one of our action items, we are going to have a rationale, we're going to have a goal statement, and then action step and timeline. Because I have been in education 25 years, I've done strategic planning for many of those years. We set all these wonderful goals and these aspirations and these action items, and then you follow back up in 3 years and you accomplish nothing. Because so much work goes into the planning of it that everybody's exhausted when it's time to do the work. This is going to hold us accountable. And at a quick glance, you can see the green is already completed, the yellow is in process, and the red is not started. And in each one of our action steps, we are going to have a detailed timeline and accountability measures to make sure we make progress. And this is what I expect to be held accountable to. What, as a Board of Education, you should expect is in each Board of Education meeting, I will probably highlight one thing about the strategic plan at each meeting, hopefully, to give you an update as to where we're at with it. And that's kind of what you'll get used to seeing these sheets. This isn't necessarily out there for the public. This is for the people doing the work. So in my much quicker than Dr. Martin, that's the quick overview of our strategic plan and where we are as of today. I would call it still a draft form because it is, so we get to October 30th. Another paper that I put at your table before you got here, and Craig will bring it up too, is this is kind of, I'll call it a draft still, draft campus master plan. So if you remember, we put together a community campus master planning steering committee. We had 4 options to start. We narrowed it to 2, and this is kind of what the group has settled on. They haven't seen it in the finished product because the last meeting we had, and those of you who stopped by, we were cutting the sheet in half and putting 2 halves together. This is kind of what the campus master plan is beginning to look like. This is all being spurred by the fact that Hilton will be demolished by spring break. Because once Hilton is demolished, what do we do with the land? How do we prepare it? How do we prep it? We wanted to have a plan in place. So at a very high level, what you see here is baseball. And again, I want to preface this by saying this campus master plan is a dream. We haven't talked about dollars and cents. We haven't talked about how we would pay for something like this. We are simply planning for the future. Moving forward, once we kind of get the blessing, we will begin talking about, well, how much does it cost to do X, Y, and Z? And what sources of funding could we secure to make those things happen? What we know is going to happen is Hilton is going to be down by spring break. The priority of the district is for that to happen and then to investigate opening the Hilton entrance onto our campus to alleviate the traffic on Mill Road. That has been budgeted for, that has been planned for, and that is what I would say is a district priority. After that, I would tell you the district priority would begin to investigate the possibility of a bus-only entrance on the far side of the middle school. Okay, and what would that take? How much would it cost? And how will it benefit us to separate all of our bus traffic from all the teenage drivers? It's critical. And also, when opening the Hilton entrance, how does that improve traffic flow on Mill Road? Because I still have calls occasionally and people comments about what are you going to do about the traffic on Mill Road? My best comeback to that is, well, Mayor Kingston sits in that row of traffic every morning and he keeps me updated. And a lot of times Mayor Kingston will tell me it's not that bad. Okay, but it does get backed up as people are getting closer to the start of school. So we constantly talk about it as a city and a school district. We're hoping that by opening the Hilton entrance, and I will have data to support this at a later time, by opening that entrance and changing some of the traffic flow on our campus, we will quickly get the cars off of Mill Road and onto campus. And it will be in an efficient manner. And we can talk in detail about that if and when you want to. I don't necessarily know if tonight's the night, but that you have this in paper. It's attached to the board agenda as a digital version of it. You can zoom in on it. One thing that the steering committee was very clear about, they really disliked this building and the tennis courts. I mean, it was over and over and over and over. And I think it's because of the location of the two items and where it's at on campus. But the big conversation that happened during this was, what are we going to do with the middle school someday? Are we going to build a new one, or are we going to renovate and right size? And the committee was overwhelmingly to keep it where it is and renovate that building rather than building new. Building new would place that building right here where the board office is and brings on a whole nother conversation about moving a school building from one city to the other. So there wasn't much of an appetite to have that conversation, nor was there an appetite to build a brand new building. I would tell you that's probably a little bit of PTSD coming off of a brand new build, not wanting to go down that road, both financially and as well as just not interested. Plus, the use of the space on campus could be used for other things that they felt was of greater value. So that's the campus master plan. That's the strategic plan. Yes, we and Craig and I have assessments of our high school and middle school that AVG did in this process with lifespan, cost of replacements, and renovate versus replace. The binder is nice and thick. I haven't even dove into it yet. We got that, Thursday, I think it was. So we will be sharing that at the appropriate time as well. So with that, I'm going to stop, take a breath, answer any questions you may have, just for the public's to know. You guys had a lot of this information last week. So if you ask a question I didn't cover, that's why you probably have that question. So if I can answer anything, let me know.
Well, I figure we'll just go down the line. Like in an ideal world, like the master plan that we just talked about, like what sort of timeline do you envision?
All depends on the financing of it. So what we're prepared to do as a district was to prepare the Hilton site and the road coming in. Outside of that, improvements that need to be made on our campus would either need to be privately funded or we'd have to find some other mechanism to fund them. We couldn't necessarily, we could do it through permanent improvement, but it would be at a very slow pace because of the amount of money some of these things would cost. We are part of the campus master planning is to now begin to have renderings of certain pieces of it that have value. And what I mean by value, they have they're a marketability. We talked about naming rights about a year ago, and we've established some procedures and systems for people to financially invest in pieces of our campus for different naming things. So stadium, baseball fields, softball fields. So we will begin to explore those things. North Royalton years ago created a foundation that was solely around that topic of helping raise funds to make many of the athletic improvements that they've made at North Royalton. So those are the conversations that once we have the campus master plan done, and then we have asked AVG to start putting dollar figures to a lot of this, and then we will begin looking to secure private funding to get a lot of this off the ground. Now, in that, we have had some conversation in the committee meetings. People ask, well, why don't you just put a bond on? Well, yeah, that sounds great, but Craig and I's number one job is to educate students to continue to achieve at the level we are. So we're very protective of our operating money. So anytime then you want to start talking about a bond, that it's all coming from the same place. So we have to be very strategic, and we have to be very transparent with our community as to what it would cost, why we would need it, and what is the benefit. So that conversation's coming, Ellen. We just have been able to dream up to this point and not have to worry about how much it's going to cost.
Okay, so that's coming.
That's coming.
Sometime.
Yeah, it's going to be coming over the weeks and months,
Okay.
because I've asked AVG to begin, because we have been, I won't say we've been approached. It has been shared with me that there are some segments of our community that want to see certain pieces of this sooner rather than later. So I don't know what that means, but I had a friend that always told me you get 100% of what you don't ask for. So I think we have to start asking for some pieces and see if we can privately fund some of it and hopefully get some momentum. So we'll see. Our community has been very generous in the past on certain projects, and we'll see if that will be sustainable or not. Because even when you have private donations for things, we, Craig and I, have to be prepared, and the board have to be prepared for 10, 11, 12 years down the road when things need to be replaced. That has to be part of the conversation. So thank you for asking that question.
Well, and to that point, you know, a lot of this is great, but there's a lot of synthetic turf, which is fantastic until you have to replace it. Then it's very expensive. So we already have the stadium that's.
And the nice part is the drawings or the dreams say synthetic, but all of those facilities could be grass too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we scaled back some of those, I think, for that purpose. And I think to Ellen's point, when you're putting some of these things online, potentially it's grass, and then it eventually within a cycle, so that you would never have 3 or 4 synthetic turfs that would need to be replaced at the same time, right? Even if we would get to that point, that would be a part of the conversation to make sure that you could phase that, so there would always be at least a constant factor if that was the case, versus, oh, we have to replace 3 turf fields all at one time. So again, that is the dream, and they've scaled back because I think all of these were synthetic, and some of them are already coming off.
And we talked about grass. And it was apparent through the steering committee, and some, as I gave myself cramps sitting here, that we are quickly falling behind some of the quality of athletic facilities in the surrounding area. Again, my first priority is to educate children. Even being a former athletic director and former collegiate athlete, those experiences shaped who I am, but we also have to educate kids first. So we have to be very cognizant of that.
Would we have any kind of schedule in terms of bringing certain facilities up to date in terms of the athletics?
It all depends on how we end up securing funding.
Gotcha.
So right now, what I can tell people with certainty is Hilton is coming down before spring break. And the possibility of a road is very realistic, because we have planned and budgeted for it. And we're just going to now begin the process of knowing where that road's going to go, what it would take to put it in, and what the final dollar amount would be. I feel as though I need to put a disclaimer on this whole campus master plan. This campus master plan takes into account, or does not take into account, a few zoning concerns that appear to not be an issue in years past, but it's on the map. So I want to make sure that I'm not just assuming these things would happen. They would need to be approved by our municipalities. But, you know, for example, our middle school, those 2 art rooms are outside of the zoning. I mean, that's too close to the property line. But we have been very intentional in making sure that we had both cities involved in this process. So they shouldn't be surprised when the ask comes to approve some zoning modifications.
So with the timeline for, and I'm sorry, Steve, did you want to? Because I didn't have anything right off up, but as we're talking. So clearly we're all, you know, on board about Hilton and then another thoroughfare on the campus with a road. Were you looking for that road to be then completed by next school year? If, I mean,
I don't have an answer to that at this moment.
Okay.
But once we get past this this is where we'd like the road to be. Now they can put pencil to paper and come up with the numbers and begin the process of bidding and all of that. So we're going to be quickly moving in that direction. So I would hope that by the change of the year, by the first of the year, that we'd have a pretty good, clear picture of if it's going to happen and when it's going to happen. And I think it's more about when than if.
Yeah, they
Okay.
have the pretty hard numbers of what they think it will cost. It's just the question then of the Hilton property coming down and then what our timeline is.
And I haven't done soil
then-
samples yet. So
They've done, we don't have the results, but
Yeah.
they took them.
and I'm probably going too far, but I mean, with a road, I mean, is that something that we would use PI for? I mean, or,
So when I say that we have the budget or the amount of money for it is what is left of the elementary school project. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't necessarily be PI, it's gonna
Okay,
be building
okay.
fund from the original bond.
Okay.
And even with this, there should be actually some additional left over with the road completed, based on the estimates at least that we have today.
and I ask that because I understand that it's a dream, but it's also gonna be staged and prioritized, so that's why.
And we asked,
Right.
when we asked ABG to put this together, we told them that this was not, I wasn't gonna bet the paycheck on being one foul swoop and it'll all be done, that we need to do it in phases. So that phasing would be the Hilton property, the road. If we had the funding to start doing athletic improvement, it would be baseball and softball. Because you could do baseball and softball and use the current fields that we have.
Right.
And then once those are completed, then you take the other ones offline, and then those two practice fields and competition field could come in. All meanwhile, if private funding was secured, improvements at the stadium could be happening. So that's the phase-in type approach that we talked about. So again, it's providing our campus with an identity. Those who I speak to in the community and those who I've met in the year and 4 months that I've been here are extremely interested in this and wanting to move forward in some fashion with this. I have not been approached by somebody and says, you're crazy, you shouldn't be talking about this. What we have is perfectly fine. I know those people are out there. They probably don't cross my path that often, but my point being is there is a ground wall of support for improving the facilities for our students. And I'll leave it at that. It's not scientific at all. It's just anecdotal.
Oh, is ever, I guess the other question, so we're gonna take down Hilton, we're gonna look at putting in the road, and then the next thing is, separating the bus traffic.
Mhm.
Are we gonna start looking at that kind of at the same time as we're looking at the road? Is that, or is it the road will go in first and then the next step is?
I think the road would go in first. This was my next question, because when we looked at district priorities, I said,
Right.
I don't know what that costs, right? Because that's a
Sure.
partial, if you're looking at that closely, it's a partial demolition of, I think, 2 art rooms,
2 classrooms.
two
at the junior high.
classrooms. They have to be moved and there's other space, I'm assuming, but I don't know what that cost is, right?
Okay.
So is it $1 million? Is it 2? Is it 4? I don't know what that is, because then we would then look at that in terms of what is left in that building fund to see what could be the district could potentially look at, or how much we would need, whether that any part of the project could happen. If that makes sense.
And obviously, like you mentioned, this company, they're gonna do, so if we say we're gonna put in this road, there'll be a stop sign here, there'll be this entrance, we're gonna do it, they're gonna do a whole traffic study, like on our, and they're gonna say, this is how traffic will flow and this is right, like before we.
So they've already done this, they've already done the study, and
okay.
they've been a part of creating these the roads, the traffic patterns and the flows. They've already been a part of that.
And
correct.
they feel that this is fast, like this is going to work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Alright.
That's what he said, that there will be a final report of the traffic study. But they've already spent the time on the campus analyzing what we have.
Okay.
Then okay, this is the plan. And then they've been consulted, the traffic study company has been consulted with the creation of this and how the bus loop would work and how we would drop off middle school and high school kids and things like that for parents that have kids in both schools. Like, they've looked at all that, the stop signs, to create this.
You zoom in on the digital, you'll be able to see, it talks about the pattern, the drop offs, where the 3-way stops are, where the speed tables are. and all of those type of things. So I know it's very, very small on your printed version, but if you look at it on the computer, you can zoom in and you'll begin to see some of that detail, as well as details the number of parking spots that are available.
Yeah, a lot of people I don't think we've asked them to put the parking spaces in there because this is actually still a lot of additional parking in the campus as well. And some people don't think it's still enough. And it's like, but it's way more than we have if all of this would potentially happen. So they try to be thoughtful with where all that stuff is. And like, I mean, the visitor parking space right now at the middle school is like 5 spots and this would go to 15. So it's like those little pieces that are kind of everywhere. When you really kind of zoom into the plan, you can see a lot of parking in different places.
And I didn't talk about any of it. It's in there. It's been shared with the board, but the community survey, I thought that the survey and the results were very enlightening, have led to a lot of these conversations, as well as to much of the information and strategic plan. I'm not going to go through it tonight, but it's just, I think they did a great job of compiling that data for us, and there's a lot to digest. So please, if you have questions or want to talk more deeply about it, I'm happy to do so. But with that, that was kind of the update on strategic plan so far. Keep October 30th open if you're available. We hope to make it a very nice event and an annual thing.
Jeff, what?
7 o'clock. 7 o'clock.
October 30th?
Yes. We had to adjust for to cities and different things.
Wednesday.
Wednesday. It's Wednesday.
Do you have anything on the 24th? Is that
It was going to be on the 24th, but we ran into quite a few conflicts.
Okay,
So-
I just,
That's the CBCC.
yes, so I wasn't going to because I thought, all right.
It's not the 30th.
Okay. Thank you.
So Jeff, you mentioned this is still considered a draft
Mhm.
version of the plan. Are there any more channels for input to potentially this plan?
Yeah.
Or is this kind of like put it out to the community, kind of see what comes back?
This is like the soft opening kind of, to a restaurant. If we're going to liken it to restaurants,
You're
this would
talking
be
a strategic plan or campus master plan or both?
No, I'm talking about campus.
Campus master plan. Okay.
Yeah, that I would tell you that the campus master plan is always a working document until things actually start to physically get in the way. And it's been done in a way where small adjustments can be made, things could be added. But I think the overall 30,000-foot view of the campus master plan, as far as placement of things, I think is pretty solid. But I took feedback at the PSO president's meeting the other day. There was a high school PSO meeting last week where somebody wanted to share some information. I had one member of our community send me 3 paper copies of that with notes all over it, with traffic flow questions and concerns. So I would tell you that I'm open for taking feedback for a while on that.
Okay. Well, thank you for all the work that was put in by you and by your team. Obviously, campus master planning, all the strategic team that was put together to help develop the plan, and all the work on the strategic plan. Obviously a lot went into that, so it's exciting to finally unveil it and kind of see the direction we're going to be pointing in and have a roadmap to get there. So lots of great stuff. So thanks to you and all involved.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to item 6, treasurer's announcements.
I'm so winning this. I really don't have anything. No. Just the one thing I kind of share with you guys, just also for the public's knowledge, was the tidbit a couple days ago with the Auditor of State's office is going to now start testing 5-year forecasts. Again, and that's just in light, I think, of, I've had conversations with people at DEW and the Auditor of State's office about why this is happening. And so we don't exactly know what all they're going to test and who they're going to test. I'm not necessarily concerned. I don't think we should be a target in any way, shape, or form for that. But I mean, in light of what has happened in some of the districts where a 5-year forecast was off by $13 million is a problem. So those are the pieces. And I will also share the other piece that is plaguing school districts, and we are not one of them in that regard. And it's around the state. It's a topic that OASBA is working on, is bank reconciliation. So as you see that I provide the bank reconciliation for you to review, it's an important document to look at to make sure that you understand that we are every single month to the penny balancing and reconciling our bank to our book. And that is not happening throughout the state of Ohio. They're doing trying to get some root cause analysis involved as to why that's happening. Some of it is because there's a huge turnover and a lack of treasurers that are qualified to do these jobs. So it's a major concern, and there's districts that have not balanced their books in multiple years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, that they have not balanced their books. It's terrifying. Again, it's why we're required, and we should be providing that bank reconciliation to school boards. And so you can see that on what our bank balances are, and you can see how our book clears, and how much money is in outstanding checks and things like that. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out and ask. But again, they'll be testing 5-year forecasts. They don't like to press lead times, so they're going to start testing as for the fiscal 24 from last year's audit. Again, I don't know if we will be tested, but I know the treasurer at Nordonia was pulled, and they did have to do the testing for them. And they're just concerned with trying to make sure that they are able to. A forecast is a forecast, so you're projecting forward. So it's a little bit unique in that they're trying to test where your forecast was to your actuals. So there's so many variables, but they're also testing people's assumptions. The assumptions, need to be for all the major line items and what data is included in there, and making sure you're hitting all the major line items and having assumptions in all those categories. So those are the major things they're looking for. But some people are arguing that, especially in year 4 and year 5, how much do we know at that point? Sometimes you're involving 3 state budgets within a 5-year forecast. So just something to be aware of. That's it.
Okay, moving on to item 7, community communications, hearing of the public. Do we have anybody queued up?
Nope.
No? Okay, so I'm going to dispense with the reading, and we're going to move on to item 8, superintendent's other business. Item A, resolve to approve the AP environmental trip proposal as attached. Item B, resolve to approve the Ohio Model United Nations trip proposal as attached. Item C, resolve to approve the high school youth and government overnight field trip as attached. Item D, resolve to approve the summer of 2026 middle school breeze trip proposal as attached. Item E, resolve to approve the Kent State Field Experience and Student Teaching Agreement as attached. Item F, resolve to approve the BBHCSD gifted policy and plan as attached. Item G, resolve to approve bus purchasing resolution as attached. Item H, resolve to approve the CTE waiver resolution as attached. Item I, resolve to approve the 2025-26 and 2026-27 district calendars as attached. Item J, resolve to approve the 2024-25 ESC interdistrict service area contract as attached. Item K, resolve to approve the final site agreement as attached. Item L, resolve to approve the attached resolution declaring transportation impractical for the 2024-2025 school year. Item M, resolve to approve superintendent's other business items A through L. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Well, we got a lot of the alphabet here.
We did. As you started to read, I looked and oh, it got down to L. So a lot of great trips right off the bat. And there were a few that you probably, if you were looking at the draft agenda and the first release, there's a couple that aren't on here because we didn't have final details. We have time to get them in at the next board meeting before their trips, referring to robotics in particular. So these are great trips that our staff are making possible for our students. Kent State Student Teaching Agreement. We had done one for Mount Union probably a month or 2 ago, common practice. Gifted policy and plan. This is something that gets updated yearly. And thank you for asking the question. Well, this is great, Jeff, but what in this document has changed? So that was an oversight on my part. One assessment that we had used in the past has fallen off the approval list, so we had to have a new one. And then our delivery model for grades 4 and 5 has changed from self-contained to pull out this year. So those are the 2 major changes that are in that gifted plan that once approved will be posted on our website for state regulations. Bus purchasing resolution, I believe it's 2 buses, 72 passenger and a handicap that we're going to be receiving bids for to continue to update our fleet. CTE waiver is something that we did last year. We do again this year. It's just a waiver with the state that we do not offer any CTE programming at our middle school. Prior to my arrival in previous years, this waiver wasn't done due to some interpretation, rightly or incorrectly or correctly done, but we do not offer CTE programming at the middle school, nor do many middle schools. We offer STEM programming and other high quality offerings for our students, but nothing that targets necessarily CTE. We do have a grant in process, roughly of over $200,000 for some coding that would be implemented at the middle school if we're successful with that grant application that Dr. Martin and his team have submitted. So maybe next year, or maybe through things in our strategic plan in the future, CT waiver wouldn't be necessary, but it is right now. We're not alone in this waiver. District calendars. This is probably what I've gotten the most feedback from the community on since the start of school. Once you start, and we're in that cycle where we just finished the second of a 2-year kind of cycle. This is for next school year and the following school year. Everybody wants to start after Labor Day and be done before Memorial Day. It is not possible. Our teachers work 186 days. Traditionally, our students attend for 177. So you will see we are starting on a Wednesday in both of those school years, not a Monday. I have chosen to increase professional development days by 1 at the beginning of the school year. Traditionally, we had 2. I've added 3, meaning we have 3 days before students arrive. And we end literally the first week or day or 2 of June in both of those calendars. So there's some unique differences in them of years past, but nothing radical. So we will have it presented here. And I know we have it here in the approval of items, but actually it will officially be approved at the next meeting. It's supposed to be presented and then approved. That's oversight and the placement on the agenda here. As I speak about it, I realize that. ESC service contract. This is for some behavioral specialists and gifted servicing that they provide to us. Item K is a final site agreement. This does tie to the strategic plan and is one of the action items that we have started on, like campus master planning, before the strategic plan is finalized. But one of the things I noticed when I was even interviewing was the need to improve and enhance our presence on the web. Our website is very outdated in the way that it functions on the back end as well as on the public side. This final site agreement is for a 5-year agreement. It is at a additional cost compared to where we currently are, but it is a little bit of you get what you pay for. And if you looked at any of the information I provided for Final Site, they are the leader in the space. They do more than just provide you with a website. I now are part of I will be, if approved, part of the superintendent's collaborative with Final Site that we meet the first Thursday of every month to talk about different strategies of communicating with your community and best practice, as well as they will provide to us an app. Our website will be mobile friendly, and it will integrate with many of the tools that we currently use. So this is a upgrade and would be part of our strategic plan as well. Payment in lieu of transportation seems to be a common occurrence in most of our agendas of late, but just deeming some impractical and will be paid instead of us transporting. So that is just updated. And that would be all of my items A through L.
Any questions or comments?
My comment is I'm very excited about the whole final site. Contract being on there. So I know that that's been a goal and that's been a desire of the community.
There's not
receiving feedback for that.
There's not a ton in that space. Current provider we use, Final Site. There used to be a Blackboard, which Final Site purchased Blackboard, so took one out. There's a couple others. Final Site is their presence in Northeast Ohio has exploded in the last 2 to 3 years. So Shaker, Beechwood, Hudson, Lorraine are just came online within this year. Their website's already out. If approved, we would target probably late 3rd quarter, early 4th quarter of publishing the new site, so that it's up and running and working during the summer months. Those summer months is when we get a lot of traffic as to what's going on. So we want to get it up and going before the end of the school year.
Yeah, the information you sent on Final Site was really nice. I liked, and looking at those other districts you mentioned, like Hudson and Shaker, their sites are really nice. It's really easy to find the information. And then, so if once we get our new site up and running, and then you mentioned an app, so that comes later, right?
It will probably be released at the same time because the
okay.
app is really, the website's feeding the app. And because of the site, you will have an app to be able to download that will be quick push to like lunch menus and schedules, things like that. Or if you just go to this website on your phone, it will be extremely mobile friendly. It will, our current website does that too, but the layout and design of that website is not mobile friendly. Where this one will automatically adjust based on if you're on your phone or you're on your iPad or some other type of device.
Other questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item 9, superintendent's personnel recommendations. Item A, resolve to approve certified personnel recommendations. Item B, resolve to approve classified personnel recommendations. Item C, resolve to approve superintendent's consent items A through B. May I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Pull them up. Got anything of note here?
Nothing of significance. I mean, I shouldn't say significance, that's the wrong word. Nothing out of the ordinary, this time of year. Obviously, we have a contract revision there at the top, a few recommendations, some credentialing that's being done at this time of year with some of our building principals. And then also a lot of our mentors who, help onboard a lot of our newer teachers or entry year teachers, as well as first few years there in the profession. So I do thank them for that work. It is additional work that they do. It is compensated, but at the same time, it is still additional work in helping improve the profession on the certified side. Classified side, again, the contract revision, handful of special ed assistant, educational assistant, custodian 2, some resignations, 2 resignations, and then just 1 termination is listed on there, of just pointing that out to you that is there.
Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yeah.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item E, resolve to approve supplemental personnel recommendations. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Here we're starting to see our winter coaches and positions being filled. A couple last fall ones, as well as I'd like to point out, there's 3 volunteers on here who volunteer just to help our students. So greatly appreciate volunteer help that we get.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item 10, treasurer's consent agenda. Item A, resolve to approve financial reports as attached. Item B, resolve to accept donations as presented. Item C, resolve to approve the minutes from the August 21st, 2024 regular board meeting as attached. Item D, resolve to approve treasurer's consent items A through C. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Greg, you're up.
yay,
Let's read through the checklist.
yes. Let's do it. All right, so this is where we are after the month of August. Like waiting till it like loads maybe, there we go. So we did get our real estate settlement. So that was $14.7 million from our local taxes, local property taxes. Personal utility property is your $1.2 million, $500,000 in state aid, $46,000 in restricted aid, and a total of $16.9 million. Some miscellaneous here. A lot of this, and again, too, when we see this all other revenue, a lot of that is being driven right now still by interest and investments at the moment. So almost $200,000 this month kind of gets put into that line item. From that, although, as we learned earlier, the Fed has cut the rates by 50 basis points. So we are going to, on the investment side, probably be fine. But now we've been very heavily investing. $94,000, I think, came from just our dollar bank account in interest. So as interest rates continue to fall, not immediately, we will begin to move some of that money and not leave it in dollar bank if we ever get down to where we were. And then we kind of keep more of our money in the investment side of things. So that is part of what we manage. Personal services, you will see is higher because August was a 3-pay month. Benefits cost the district $1 million, $200,000 roughly in purchase services, $125,000 in supplies. Other objects, this is mostly our the fees that are related to the collection of the property taxes. And then that $185,000 was when the transfers posted from last month that were approved. Total expenditures, $5.2 million, almost $5.3 million. Sorry. When we go over here and we compare this, now again, our forecast will be updated. So this is the May forecast that we are comparing fiscal 25 to. We can see that we are hopefully going to still, looks like we will do better on the revenue side. 56 million versus 55 million, about $700,000 difference, I believe, $600,000 difference. And then we look on the expenditure side. Again, this is all going to be updated anyways, but it looks like we will be under in personal services as well as benefits. Just to keep in mind, we did project 11% for benefits as of the forecast, and we will be taking effective in October, 12.5% on the benefits. So it was a little bit under, but we also perform well in the benefit side. So I'm not really concerned about it, but we will start to see the benefit side grow a little bit. So when we look down here, we should, at this point, it looks like we might finish still positive this year. So we'll be diving into these numbers over the next month or so before we get ready for the November forecast. When we go and compare our expenditures, from last year at this same exact time. So this is the comparison from August of 24 to August of 25 fiscal year. Again, you'll see that those expenditures are much higher this year, and that's because last year was 2 pays, this year was 3 pays. Benefits were more as well due to that third pay, because you're going to pay more on the STRS side for the pension benefits, and or I guess I should say SERS as well. I should have not only had one. And all other areas of expenses were down over last August, not significantly, but a little bit. When we look at the revenue side, we are a little bit less than we were last year, but again, last month we were ahead because of the timing of those collections for real estate. All in all, everything's balancing out well for the fiscal year. All of the revenues were very steady as compared to last year. That's the same recap as the cash position report. I have to zoom out just a smidge for this one as we compare where we were. Green was last year in revenues. We're just a smidge below where we were, so it's very consistent still on the revenue side overall, fiscal year to date for the 2 months that we have. And then expenditures, again, are higher than they were fiscal year to date, again, because that is a 3-pay month for August, which takes up the majority of that change. And I will just point out, so again, we'll do a quick review because I don't think we've looked at this actually since we have some new board members. So when you are looking at this, this is where all of the money in the district is held. We have a Star Ohio account. We have our Red Tree General account. This is the building fund and what the current balance is of that building fund as of the end of August. We do still continue to earn interest in that account, which is why it's still technically growing as we have no expenditures currently. We have a Chase account, which is just mostly for our credit card that we use. Westfield Bank, we have money that is allocated there as well. And then our Dollar Bank is our primary. You can see the interest that was earned in all of those interest-bearing accounts in this column. And then how we allocate that interest actually is all broken down here. So you can see that the bulk of it, based on a percentage of these, majority of it goes to the general fund. And then based on the fund balance, it is allocated appropriately. So like $11,000 this month went into the PI fund and how that was allocated. So it was a total of $197,000 that was earned in interest for that month. So look for that to start to go down a little bit. And then this is where we have some of those outstanding items. So $346,000, that is coming here strictly from outstanding checks that were written. And we have one payroll check that is an outstanding check on the payroll side. So when you balance all of that out, there is your bank balance of $53,578. That is what appears on the statement. And then when we account for these changes of things we've written and we account for those, it balances back to the book so that your clearance amount is 0. If it doesn't end up being 0, I'll let you know. It's always been 0 since I've been here. Any questions? Okay, donations. We do have a lot of donations. I'm going to zoom out because it's a little bit easier. A lot to the garden club. So tons of donations to the garden club. And I think they're all except maybe two. That is, yeah, to the soccer and the golf team. So there's gonna be a lot of gardening going on, I think, at the elementary school. That's what it sounds like. And then we just have the minutes.
Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic?
I did want to
Sorry.
can I just say thank you to the people that donated for the garden project? And if people have seen it, I'm sorry, Mr. Hartland and Mrs. Toth left because they could have explained it better, but they, the staff and students have set up like a little, fenced off garden area and they're going to start like planting things. It's actually really nice. It's, kind of in the back by the playground. So that's a really nice project that, is being undertaken there. So that's what that is.
Wait till you see next month. You're gonna all have a treat.
Oh,
I
from the
can't spoil
garden.
it for you. I did not spoil it for her.
From the garden.
There's multiple new experiences coming for the board members next month.
Oh, wow. All right.
Do not eat dinner before you come to the meeting.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic?
Yeah.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item 11, closing items. Sorry, I was getting confused on the left. Yeah. Item A, announcements. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for October 16th at 6 p.m. Item B, resolve to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer? Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, meeting is adjourned, everyone. Thank you and have a great evening.